Welcome back to the lab. Sorry about the noise in the background there. We've got some high-speed internet cables going in at long last, so it might help with the upload speed for the videos, but probably not the quality. So today, back onto the mighty Gloria with the supercharged BK56 V8. Just working in the rear wheel tubs. I'll show you what's happening there. So I may have already shown you that I've removed the disgusting welding that was holding the inner guard here to the chassis rail. There's normally a pinch weld here, like a return that comes back towards us, and that's welded to the top of that. They've chopped that out to give themselves more clearance for the wider wheels and tyres. The disgusting job on the left hand side here, so I've made it somewhat better. I won't call it perfect. Again, sorry about the noise outside. Guys are putting in some internet cables. So you wouldn't normally grind those welds at all, not for low volume cert stuff. They don't want to see that happen ever. In this situation, it's pretty much a priority to get the maximum amount of clearance as we can do. So the welding's still there and visible. It's just I've taken the tops off it to give it a bit more room. Hopefully there's no issues with that. Attacking these crush tubes here, so I've just ground off the end of the crush tube and around the welding to remove those and fit something better that allows us to put these great big bolts through the chassis without having the bolt head hanging out. Not sure if you can see it on that one very clearly, but certainly on one of them at least the tyre has been rubbing against the bolt, which is not very good. So, and then I've just realised there's something else going on with these crush tubes as well. So there's the bolt inserted into there, relatively square. Not sure if the camera's going to let me follow through on the angle here. You can't really see it very clearly. This is not square to the chassis rail by a long way. Like, it's probably about 5 or 6 degrees out at least. So it's actually tapered around that way to the chassis rail. So just another drama I have to sort out. If you you can see, oh sorry, the light's on the other side, it shouldn't be, but if I position that just right, you see the light shining through the hole in the other crush tube there. In theory you should be able to look through this one and see that hole, and as you can see it doesn't really happen because it doesn't line up. So that's something else I have to do. I'll build a full little, same on the side here, I'll build a plug which will go into here, be welded to both sides of the chassis, this side and the other side, and I'll have a recess to fit our bolt head in there so that we don't have issues with it hitting the tyre. So I've tidied up this side as well. The welding was all shonky as over here, so didn't need an insert. So I've made an improvement. It's not perfect. It's pretty difficult to fix up other people's messes sometimes, so hopefully that's pretty good. Another thing that needs resolving is this whole area here where I've ground it away is actually all concave to where they've put the crush tube through. I'm not sure what the hell's happened there. It doesn't need to be and it shouldn't be, so I'll have to remove that crush tube entirely, straighten all this back out again on both sides before we put our insert in there. So fun and games. Alrighty, so there's our crush tubes with a little top hat, I guess you'd call it, or recess. Yeah, they're cooled down enough. So the bolt heads can sit in there, and then we're going to make the holes in the chassis bigger. For that to go through, have a recessed bolt head. So here's the passenger side. I've squared up that hole, so it goes through there like that. All welded in this place. Assuming, of course, it will fit. Should do. Haven't tested it yet. Yeah, it's a nice tight, snug fit because the other side of that hole is crooked. So you'll be wondering how I managed to drill that hole in the right spot, given there was already a hole in the chassis, so you can't use the drill for a pilot. That's all you need to do there. Get yourself a piece of scrap metal or whatever, same size diameter hole saw, buzz that through there, and then because you've got a hole in the middle, you can't rely on the drill to hold it in the right spot. Just bang that in there like that. and your piece of metal will hold the hole saw in the right spot, and away you go. That's really loud for you, wasn't it? I should have given you a warning. So anyway, I'll put the phone down while I drill that, because doing this one-handed is a real dumb idea. If the drill grabs, it'll snap my wrist, and there won't be any work happening, and that just moved as well, you see. So I need to do things properly rather than filming it to show you guys. So I'll show you when that's all sorted out. Perfect result once I had two hands available to do the job. Even lined up in the center of where I've marked. So there's our hole there, and you can see that shines straight through to the other side where we just put that tube in. So we got it square this time, unlike the original job. So that's cool. We'll carry on. I'll get those welded in. There we go. So that's not terrible. It's actually worked out really well. Nice and flush. So you do have to use a thin wall socket to get in there. Multi-hex, you can't use a big impact socket on that. It won't fit in between there and the tube. Next size up tube was actually quite ridiculously large. Not really sensible to do. So bolts are both nice and straight now. So we've got that under control. So now we can get some fatter tires and we straightened up a problem. Next thing to do is probably put another bracket on the inside edge of that so that the shocks end up in double shear. That's basically just something. Put a plate onto here, onto this frame and onto the floor there, so that weight goes onto both sides instead of just leveraging entirely on that bolt, which probably is okay. That's generally what factory do, more or less that. But we just want to be a little bit fussy and make sure we get it dead right so there's no problems with set. Rightio, now we've finished fluffing around with those shock mounts, and the chassis part at least. We've still got to do the inside mounts to make it double shear. The next step with the exhaust system is to put a couple of V-bands in this tailpipe section here so that the exhaust can be removed from the car without dropping the diff out of the car. The passenger side might be plausible once the tip is on the end here, even though it's quite a big tip. Might be possible to get that side out. Driver's side, no, not going to happen. Once that tip goes on there, it will not come out of the car without dropping the diff out of the car, and that's silly. We don't want to make things hard, so we've just put in an order online at Synco Customs over in Te Rapa there for another couple of V-band assemblies, and it's a nice enough day out there. Not raining or anything, so we'll go for a drive. We'll pick those up. Rightio, so made our trip into town. Popped into Synco this morning and picked up 2.5-inch stainless steel V-bands, 304 stainless steel. So they're pretty nice, tidy units. Not badly priced. Sourced locally, so that's cool. We've done that. Also went for another trip this afternoon. So I've probably clocked up more miles today than I have for the last 6 weeks, maybe, or 5 weeks. I went to Tauranga the day of the lockdown, didn't I? So it's about 5 weeks. So I got some more cut-off discs for the angle grinder, obviously. Some flappy discs to do some tidying up of the things that I'm cutting with the cut-off discs. And also we popped into Allfast in here, those big bolts you see. Those are the 2 bolts that I need to do those front top mounts for the diff. So it was like the day of the lockdown, the first day of the lockdown, I think it was, I realised I'm going to need those bolts before I can do those mounts for the diff. And couldn't really get them during lockdown unless I ordered them from America or something like that. So I postponed doing that job until now, and it's not going to be fun. So I'll go and show you what we got to get up to under there. So these are the original top mounts for the rear diff, the front mounts. You can see I've chopped off one side of that there. The bush assembly that's on the new arms is much, much bigger than this original mount was. The distance between the 2 points you see there is a lot bigger than that, so that's not going to work anyway. Also, for low volume cert, you can't really have a bracket like that attached to half of the chassis. or 2/3. It's got to go right to the top of the chassis rail, and looking at that welding in there, she's pretty shonky along the top there. They've actually, I think they burnt right through the chassis rail when they did that welding by the looks of that, so I've got a bit of a mess to clean up there. Right, I guess that could have been worse. So it's about an hour to chop out those old mounts. That one's gone, that one's gone. A little bit of collateral damage there. Bit of a cut into that plate, which I'd have to weld up if that plate's going to stay there. It may not. I might actually chop that right out. It's quite likely there's rusting behind that as well, so that's probably a good idea just to do the hard yards now, get that cut out, and deal with it. Welding actually doesn't look that bad on that edge there for that plate, but this one, maybe not so good. Maybe completely terrible. There's parts of that have not even touched that plate. So right in the center of the screen there, and about there somewhere, it's not really holding much at all, and don't think we're going to have a lot of penetration onto the actual chassis rail there either, or at the top. Geez, I've just talked myself into it, haven't I? So I've got to chop those plates out tomorrow. The mounts needed to come off those plates anyway to get those out, so I'll carry on. Either that or I could put something over the top. It's probably not the right way to do it. Would work. Nah, let's chop them out. So that's going to be cool fun. We get those out of the way, and then we get the diff back up into the car, and we make sure we've got our mounts at the right angle, and carry on from there. Alrighty, so it's a couple of days later. Didn't do any work over the weekend. It's good when you can do that sometimes. I really needed a bit of a break. Not that I've been working hard out, but I decided to take a break anyway, so too bad. Got those top brackets started for those arms, so the cut out those original pieces, made up some new pieces. They're just tacked in there at this point in time, just to hold the top arms where we can put them without modifying the floor pan under the seat area. And so we've got about, wrote it over there, 5.3 degrees angle on the lower arms at full droop, and 9.6 on the top arms at full droop, which goes up significantly higher as the car goes lower. So those are some pretty big angles. I might see about, you'll have to excuse the rain, it's inconvenient, I might see about putting a bit of a speed bump in this general area here of the floor, raising that up, say 20 millimeters or 30 millimeters or so, and that'll improve our angles of our arms significantly. I would lift up these lower arms. I could, in fact I probably should, but old Noddy didn't clean out the powder coating from the holes, and that's quite difficult to do with the handbrake assembly and the bloody disc rotor and all that on there. So grr, that's my grizzle for today. A bit angry about that, but never mind. So yeah, and the next thing that's happened is, geez, I'm gonna have to yell over the rain. Next thing that's happened is I've put the wheel on there. Oh, come on! I put the wheel on there and checked for our clearance up inside our wheel tub area here, and spoken with our guy to supply a tyre to test fit onto the wheel. Going to try a 275 30/19 at this point in time. It's a pretty big tyre. That should be quite sits quite square on the wheel, and we'll see if we can make that fit inside that tub without any further tweaking. I think I showed you this side here. That's it's not as pretty as it could be, but it's an improvement over what it was. I didn't do the whole area, some of it's still the original stuff, but yeah, it certainly makes a big difference with those bolts recessed into the chassis. That's given us quite a lot more room, as you can see, flush. So winning. These are our Savage Performance and Spares wheel adapters to give us our 20mm spacing to get the offset for the wheels right. So Alright, we'll get a tyre tomorrow, we'll test it, fit that on the car, see where we're at, then we can talk to the owner about what tyres he wants to run. He's preferring semi-slicks, but semi-slicks are a tricky size to get. So we'll just have to see what we come up with. Alright. Like, share, subscribe if you like what you see. We'll get there eventually. We're going to start making some progress on this. I'm going to give these lower arms a bit of a tweak. These ones here. You've got a little bit too much camber happening on the front. Not that you can see it. Yeah, you might be able to see it. I'm going to just remove a tiny bit of material from the inside edge here. This thread runs through here for miles. It's got a really long rod end, so we can just take a little bit of material off that. Reduce the length of the lower control arms back to something closer to stock. Get rid of that camber. And hopefully tuck the wheel into the guard a little bit nicer. Do lots of good things. Hopefully New Zealand's going to come out of level 3 lockdown into level 2 very shortly, and that might help us get some bits and pieces that we need with the wiring harness and all that sort of carol. Alright, cheers, bye.